I am the nation. I was born on July 4th, 1776, and the Declaration of Independence is my birth certificate. The bloodlines of the world run in my veins because I offered freedom to the oppressed. I am many things and many people. I am the nation. I'm 200 million living souls and the ghost of millions who have lived and died for me. I'm Nathan Hale and Paul Revere. I stood at Lexington and fired the shot heard round the world. I'm Washington, Jefferson, Patrick Henry. I'm John Paul Jones, the Green Mountain Boys, Davy Crockett. I'm Lee.
Coming to you from the DTOM Studios in the free state of Florida, sponsored by Maker's Mark Bourbon, this is Don't Tread on Merica. Alrighty, how's everybody doing out there today? It is Sunday, June 14th, 2026. Happy Flag Day. Just happy birthday to the president. Everyone watching the UFC match tonight, huh? What? Huh? No? Me neither. Alright, so, couple of things, guys, real quick. I got an interesting show for you today. Now, I know I haven't been here in a week. Okay, I had a busy, extremely busy work week, and then this week I'm out of town. Fortunately, I'm off today and tomorrow, so I'm going to get you a couple of shows done so you have something to listen to. Then I go on vacation, so I really got to get some shit together, but it was a busy week last week. It's like one of the guys, we work together, we do the same job at work, and our comment to each other is we're just getting rich off of laziness and incompetence. That's basically what this is. It's basically what I get paid to do. So, anyway, it's fine. In the meantime, guys, we got a good show today. We're going to talk about something very interesting that I've been thinking about for a while. And I wanted to do it around this time because it coincides with what today is, leading into July 4th, our 250th anniversary, or birthday, or whatever you want to call it. And we're going to jump into it, because obviously this is a conspiracy show, so we got to talk about conspiracies, right? So, please, stay tuned. Guys, in the meantime, make sure you check out the DTOM Store. Follow us on social media, Don't Tread on America on Facebook, Instagram, True Social, and the Ticker Talker. And, of course, on the Twitter X Machine, DTOM Podcast 1776. And if you're not on social media, guys, you can go to the website, DontTreadonMerica.com. Also, check us out on Rumble, on DontTreadonMericaTV. And if you have any questions, concerns, you want to get with me about anything, you have anything you want to run by me, have me look up and do some research on, you can do that. Email me, DonQ at DontTreadonMerica.com. And right now, we're going to kick it off with a little bit of Damn Yankees. Don't Tread on America version, courtesy of one Ted Theodore Nugent. Guys, oh my goodness. This show might piss a few of you guys off. Maybe it won't. I don't know, but it's just something that I've been thinking about for a couple of years. Is the history that we've been told about what this holiday is coming up the truth? I'm going to let you ponder on that while we listen to the song. Hang tight.
Don't you dare
All right, welcome back to another episode of Don't Tread on America, the only show brave enough to say what the textbooks and the nightly news bury 6 feet deep. Of course, I'm your host, Donq. Today we're dropping the full red pill marathon of pure, unfiltered truth, guys. We're connecting every dot from the secret 1910 Jekyll Island meeting that birthed the Federal Reserve creature to the engineered Great Depression as the ultimate reset. All the way back to the biggest lie of them all, America's so-called founding on that July 4th birthday we're told to celebrate every year. Alright guys, if you're watching this on Rumble, DontTreadonMericaTV, you see me drinking a Celsius today. As I'm recording, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You might be thinking, wow, it's kind of late. Be drinking an energy drink. Well, here's the thing. I've been up since about 3 o'clock this morning. Last week I worked 71 plus hours. 71 plus. It's fine. It's fine. I get overtime. So I went to bed kind of early yesterday. I worked 13 hours, came home, mowed the yard. It's 7,000 degrees outside in Florida. And, so I was wore the fuck out. Anyway, drinking a Celsius because it's my grandson's birthday. Well, it's actually tomorrow is his birthday, but we're going to go out to dinner tonight. I needed to get a show done, and I need some energy because I was falling asleep watching TV. So I popped an Alp. I cracked open a Celsius Tall Boy. That's what I call these. These are the Tall Boys. That's what I like to call these. Anyway, they get me going. Ooh, mama. So, let's dive into this, guys. As America's birthday approaches, I keep coming back to one burning question. What if the history we've been fed is a carefully crafted illusion? What if 1776 wasn't the spontaneous explosion of liberty, the winners who wrote into the books, but the next calculated phase of an ancient esoteric plan? What if the American experiment was never ours to begin with? I'm going to go deep on Manly P. Hall's explosive book, The Secret Destiny of America. And we're not dismissing a single word of it. Just because the mainstream calls it fringe, lack of confirmation doesn't equal lack of confirmation doesn't equal lack of truth. Elites have hidden information forever. Look at the sealed archives, the destroyed documents, the narratives that shift whenever the old ones stop serving power. Today we connect Hall's vision of a mystical America to Francis Bacon's New Atlantis, the Masonic and Rosicrucian threads running through the founders, the symbols on our money and monuments, Jekyll Island's banker coup, and the Great Depression as the controlled demolition that locked the whole thing down. So grab your freedom fuel, whatever you're drinking. Like I said, you saw what I'm drinking. This is the episode they hope you never hear. And as much as we're shadow banned, Unless you're following the show, you might not. So I encourage you to follow this show, guys. Whatever podcast app you're listening to, hit that plus button. Follow the show. There's no Patreons here. There's no paywall. There's nothing. I'm going to be here till we're done. Probably be here an hour or so. We're going to talk about this stuff. If you like what you hear, make sure you share this with your friends. Follow the show. And go back and listen to some other episodes that maybe you haven't caught. All right, so picture this. Imagine, if you will. July 4th, 1776. Brave men sign a document declaring independence from a tyrant king. Fireworks, parade, apple pie, that's the story. But what if the real story started centuries earlier? What if the seeds were planted by secret societies long before any shots were fired in Lexington? That's exactly what Manly P. Hall lays out in The Secret Destiny of America. Hall wasn't some random conspiracy guy. He was a respected 33rd degree Freemason, a philosopher, and one of the most prolific writers on esoteric traditions in the 20th century. His book, first published in 1944 and expanded later, argues that America wasn't an accident of history. It was the fulfillment of an ancient destiny, the New Atlantis, foretold by Francis Bacon. Guided by hidden hands and built as a stage for enlightened self-government under initiatic principles. Hall connects the dots. The mysterious stranger who allegedly swayed the signers of the Declaration, a figure Hall ties to esoteric traditions. The symbolisms of the Great Seal with its unfinished pyramid and the all-seeing eye, the Masonic layout of Washington, D.C., and the fact that so many founders, Washington, Franklin, and a dozen of the signers, were active Freemasons. He doesn't shy away from the Rosicrucians and the Baconian influences either. America, in Hall's view, was chosen or engineered as the new land where the lost mysteries of Atlantis could be restored. Not through open tyranny, but through a subtle elite guiding the masses toward enlightened self-rule. America is the assignment of destiny. The seeds of democracy were planted 1,000 years before the beginning of the Christian era. The mysterious stranger who swayed the signers, America as the New Atlantis. This is from his book. Even if you've never read Hall, the symbols are hiding in plain sight. The Great Seal on the back of the dollar bill, that pyramid and eye didn't come from nowhere. Hall and researchers like him trace it straight to esoteric sources, the same ones Bacon drew from in his book, The New Atlantis, describing a utopian island ruled by a scientific brotherhood in Solomon's house, pursuing knowledge to enlarge human empire while keeping the real power hidden from the uninitiated. This isn't random. This is the conspiracy of America's creation. The winners, the banking class, the secret society initiates, the European power brokers wrote the official history. They gave us the surface story of liberty while embedding the deeper blueprint. And 1776, well, it was the ritual opening of that stage. The real directors stayed behind the curtain. Then we fast forward to 1910. The curtain gets pulled back a little further at Jekyll Island. But let's do a quick reset before we dive into the banker phase of this ancient plan. We'll hit a first commercial break here. Hang tight. All right, guys. First commercial break. What are we talking about? Anyone? Class? Bueller? In the back? You? Try it. Alp, guys. We got to talk about Alp nicotine pouches, guys. Of course, I'm on the 12s. Wintergreen. It's my favorite. Listen, guys, I don't pimp stuff I don't use here, okay? I use this stuff. Use Nord. I sleep on a MyPillow, guys. That's what we do here. Out nicotine pouches. Clean, powerful nicotine without the smoke or the chains. Perfect for staying sharp while we expose the creature. And right now, DTOM listeners save 20%, guys. Go to outpouch.com/DTOM. Get you 20% off your first order. Fuel your fight the right way. Back to the red pillin'. Hang tight. So, one of our phrases that a couple of us use at work is, I'm fueled by nicotine, caffeine, and hate. That's how I get through these long work weeks, guys. Nicotine, caffeine, and hate. Let's talk about Jekyll Island and the creatures. Next phase. The same hidden hands that shaped the esoteric founding didn't stop in 1776. By 1910, they needed tighter control. Enter the secret meeting at Jekyll Island. Nelson Aldrich, Paul Wahlberg, with his Rothschild link Kuhn Loeb ties, Frank Vanderlip, Henry Davidson, and from Morgan's orbit, he was from Morgan's orbit, J.P. Morgan, and the rest. 9 days of locked door planning disguised as a duck hunt. They drafted the plan that became the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. G. Edward Griffin, in The Creature from Jekyll Island, calls it exactly what it is. The birth of the banking cartel with the power to create money from nothing, control reserves, and engineer the booms and bust that serve the top. Eustace Mullins, in The Secrets of the Federal Reserve, traces the London connection. European dynasties use American fronts to consolidate global financial power. The creature was born to finish what the esoteric founders started. Centralize everything under elite guidance. The American experiment, as it was called, has served its purpose as a New Atlantis testing ground. Now it needed a central monetary priesthood. This is where it all clicks together. And we're not holding back one bit. Manly P. Hall's book, The Secret Destiny of America, is the Rosetta Stone for understanding the conspiracy of America's creation. Hall wasn't speculating wildly. He was drawing from Masonic records, Rosicrucian traditions, and historic fragments that mainstream historians conveniently downplay or ignore. Hall argues that the idea of a free, self-governing nation on the American continent was planted long before Columbus or the Puritans. He points to ancient mystery schools, the concept of Atlantis, as a lost golden age. And now that myth was revived by Francis Bacon's book in the book New Atlantis. Bacon, who was a philosopher, scientist, and heavily tied to early Rosicrucians and Masonic currents, described a utopian society ruled by an invisible college of wise men who advanced knowledge while maintaining control. Hall explicitly connects this to America, the New World as a reborn Atlantis, the place where the ancient mysteries could be restored under a new form of enlightened government. Key passages from Hall, we're reading them straight because they hit differently when spoken. This is from the book. According to Bacon, the New Atlantis was set apart for the great experiment of enlightening self-government long before the Founding Fathers envisioned the rise of the American Republic. He describes a mysterious stranger who appeared during the signing of the Declaration, a figure Hall ties to the esoteric brotherhood guiding events from behind the veil. Whether literal or symbolic, the point is clear. Higher initiates were steering the ship. Hall details how Freemasonry carried these traditions into the colonies. Many founders weren't just casual lodge members. They were active participants in the philosophical and initiatic system that viewed America as the fulfillment of prophecy. The Great Seal itself, with its pyramids, unfinished, work of the ages, and the all-seeing eye, which is divine providence or the hidden elite, is pure esoteric symbolism. Hall and researchers following him show how Washington, D.C. was laid out with Masonic alignments, obelisks, pentagrams in the street plans, and the Capitol as a temple. This is the conspiracy of creation. America wasn't founded by rugged individuals alone. It was midwifed by secret societies carrying forward an ancient blueprint. The quote-unquote liberty of 1776 was real on the surface, but it was also the opening act of a larger initiatic drama. The masses got the Bill of Rights and the independence rhetoric. The initiates got the symbols, the capital layout, and the long-term plan for guided evolution toward a new Atlantis under Wise direction. Enter the bankers at Jekyll Island in 1910. The esoteric founding had created the vessel. Now the creature, the Federal Reserve Cartel, was installed as a monetary engine to steer it. The same pattern, hidden hands, public illusion of freedom, real power consolidated at the top. Hall's vision doesn't stop at the founding. He sees America's destiny as ongoing, a stage where the ancient mysteries would eventually be revealed or fulfilled. But what if the Jekyll creature hijacked that destiny? What if the Depression was the next ritual reset, tearing down the old decentralized economy and the independent Americans who still believe the surface story of liberty, so the new Atlantis could be rebuilt under tighter central control? Now, this is almost 100 years. I mean, this phase is about 100 years in the making. This book was written in the 40s. Jekyll Island happened in 1910. We're in 2026. But what I'm reading here is 80-something years old. Think of it in today's terms, guys. Think about the things we've been talking about. In the last couple of shows, we've dove into these types of things. Now, I'm not sitting here telling you that in 1773, 4, 5, 6, as the revolutionists, the common folks of that time, not these individuals, believed in what was going on. But I've always asked the question, and this is what brought me to this show today, was wars in general. You know, we talk about World War I, World War II, but think about this war. At the time, England was the most powerful nation in the world. Powerful Navy, Air Force. Oh, no, they didn't have Air Force. Powerful Navy and Army, essentially. Most powerful in the world. How did a bunch of ragtag Minutemen, farmers, regular old folk, how were they able to take over and defeat the most powerful military in the world at the time? And I think that's part of the story. I think that's what gets people like Americans. That's how we get, we got the Second Amendment, we got this and we got that. And, the point of the Second Amendment was to keep the citizens armed against tyranny and against a government that might try to impose its will upon the people, blah, blah, blah. So and then you go back a few years to what Biden had said about the Second Amendment. We got tanks and we got airplanes and we got this and we got that. Blah, blah, blah. You guys just got some guns. And a lot of people like myself took that to a point where, holy shit, I think, if things really get down and nasty, that he's right. I mean, I never would say that Biden's right, but I mean, think about it. You know, I don't have a F-14 or a Raptor. I don't have a tank, you know. Most of us don't. But we want to believe that if something happened, we could defend ourselves because we believe the story of 1776. Because essentially it would be the same thing. So I started thinking, you know, and we even talked about World War II, for example, and this was a couple years ago. Chris and I did a show, and on paper, Germany should have won that war. There's no way in hell that we or, you know, the rest of Europe should have won that war, realistically. So how was it possible? Well, maybe it was possible because it wasn't real. And I always go back and forth on this. Contrary to popular opinion, I'm not 250 years old. I was not there during the Revolutionary War. None of us were. So it's easy to forget what really happened. It's easy for these individuals to make a story of how great things were. But you gotta think, it was a good 40 years before this country settled after 1776. There was a good period of time that most history doesn't go through. There's not much that you can find. I mean, you can find it if you look. I shouldn't say that. But as far as the popular history, it's like we declared our independence in 1776 and America was born. But we didn't have our first president for like 20 years. There was a brief period of time where we weren't quite sure what the hell we were doing. Or were we? But we just don't know because it wasn't popular history. The symbols don't lie. The secrecy of Jekyll doesn't lie. The outcomes, banking consolidation, New Deal expansion, ever-growing federal power, they don't lie. Even if every internal memo isn't public, the pattern across centuries is too consistent to wave away as coincidence. Elites have always hidden the deeper game. 1776 gave us the flag and the fireworks. Hall shows us the real script underneath. Of course, we could spend another hour on the connections, how Bacon's ideas flows through Rosicrucian networks into early American lodges, how the mysterious stranger legend persists in Masonic lore, how the unfinished pyramid on the dollar bill literally says the work of the building the new world, the new order, isn't done yet. This isn't tinfoil. This is documented esoteric philosophy applied to American history by one of its own high initiates. The creature from Jekyll Island didn't just crash the banks in 1929 through 1933. It executed the next phase of the plan Hall described. Consolidate power so the enlightened elite could guide the experiment without interference from the uninitiated masses. Small banks are wiped out. Middle class was broken. Government and central bank fused tighter than ever. The new Atlantis under new management.
And that's how they basically.
So, in your view, the bill, the Federal Reserve from the beginning was a ploy?
Oh, absolutely, it was a ploy. It was a brilliant piece of strategy. These people were not stupid. They're great psychopoliticians, they're great strategists. And in fact, while the bill was being debated in Congress, some of these people went before the public. They gave speeches knowing it would be reported in the press, and they were interviewed by journalists, and they said, oh, this bill that they had written on the side, nobody knew it, but they said, this bill is not going to be good for business. It's bad for America. And they actually did that ploy. And knowing full well that the average guy would read that in the newspaper and say, these big bankers don't like the bill. Must be pretty good, you know. These fellows were brilliant, and that's how they sold it.
Well, you asked the question in your book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, what is the Federal Reserve, and what is your answer?
Well, what it is, it's a cartel. it's not a government agency. It has the appearance of it being a government agency, and they went to great lengths to give it that facade. It does have the power of government because Congress voted to give the power of enforcement to it. But in its essence, underneath it, it's a cartel. It's nothing different than a banana cartel or an oil cartel or sugar cartel. It happens to be a banking cartel. They got together, they drew up the rules and regulations for their own industry, to self-regulate their own industry is what cartels do, and then they sent it to Congress, and they took off the label at the top that said banking cartel, and they erased that, and they said Federal Reserve Act. Congress passed it into law, and that's why we think it's a government agency, is because if you don't obey the rules that they set down for their own industry, you go to prison. And so it looks like a government agency. But basically the answer to your question is it's a banking cartel.
So that was Griffin on his book, Creature from Jekyll Island. As we move forward, Mullins names the London Rothschild Warburg axis. Griffin names the cartel goals. Hall names the esoteric blueprint. Put them together, and the July 4th illusion shatters. We weren't celebrating pure liberty. We were celebrating the opening ceremony of a long con that continued at Jekyll and beyond. So before we continue, I'm going to drop another commercial for you, and we can get this show rolling a little bit more here. Before the surveillance state, these hidden hands built gets any tighter. Protect your data. NordVPN, private browsing, kill switch, servers worldwide, guys. Go to nordvpn.com, use promo code DTOM for big savings. Stay encrypted while we expose the script. We'll be back in just a second. Actually, one more second. We're going to do another commercial. MyPillow. Let's get them both out of the way. American-made, supportive, and the best sleep for patriots who stay up connecting these dots. DTOM deals at MyPillow.com. Go to MyPillow.com. Use promo code DTOM. Rest up so you can keep fighting the illusion. Final stretch coming up. Hang tight. So, we've walked the full timeline. Bacon's New Atlantis blueprint, Rosicrucian and Masonic threads, 1776 as the esoteric opening act, per Manly P. Hall's Secret Destiny of America, Jekyll Island, 1910 as the banker consolidation, the Great Depression as the controlled demolition and reset, the symbols on our money, the layout of our capital, the secrecy around the creature's birth. None of this is accidental. Even if the full internal documents remain hidden, and they do, the pattern across 350 plus years is undeniable. Governments and elites don't have the real game in plain sight. They hide it in symbols, in sealed meetings, in rewritten history. Dismissing it because it's not mainstream confirmed is exactly how the illusion stays intact. As July 4th approaches, ask yourself what you're really celebrating. The surface story, or the deeper destiny that was hijacked and is still being steered. The creature is alive and digital now, but seeing the script is the first step to breaking it. So, I want to expand on all this. Going off script here. I believe it is of my personal opinion that throughout the 250 years of this country's life, existence, I guess is a better way to put that, we have had presidents who disagreed with this. And I believe that that's where a lot of your assassinations, attempts or successful has happened. And they weren't read in, I guess is a good way to put it. I believe that on paper, there's no way in hell that a bunch of farmers, a bunch of blacksmith and country guys and just regular old dudes could have possibly beaten the English military. And I'm not saying this because I'm anti-American. I mean, if you're watching this on Rumble, on DontTreadonMericaTV, and you see what's behind me, you have to believe that I'm 100% American. And I want to believe what I'm saying is bullshit. But you have to really ask yourself the question, is this factual? Or was this all just a big stage? 300 some odd years ago, when the Mayflower came and this land was being settled prior to 1776, this was called the American experiment. The American colonies, but where did that name come from? Like, we were the United States of America, America, right? You know, but 300 some odd years ago, it was the American experiment. What were they experimenting? Why was it called the American experiment? That's the things you have to ask yourself, because it's not like a bunch of people hopped on a boat, floated over here just to escape religious persecutions or whatever the storybooks tell us. They were allowed to come over here to settle the land. I believe parts of the history book are accurate. I believe that people were allowed to come over here to settle the land from Maine to Georgia, and I'm sure into Florida and even westward past those 13 colonies that we so lovingly know. And obviously the reason places like Florida and westward weren't settled as easily is because of people that were already here, whether it be the Spanish, the Native Americans, whatever, the French, because this was a plot of land from the east to the west coast that, for the most part, outside of the natives that were here, was unsettled land. So I believe that the American experiment wasn't just one of the story that we're told England. I believe other countries were trying to do the same thing. I think England was the most powerful, and because they were entrenched in all of this Freemasonry and all these other things, that it was destiny for them to be able to do this. But in order to encapsulate the belief of liberty and freedom, they had to have a war. They had to make it look like this is what's going to happen. But here's even a broader conspiracy into the whole thing. What if none of that actually took place? I mean, really, if you want to dive into a deep-ass conspiracy and you want to really jump into the rabbit hole with me, we actually have no verifiable proof that any of that took place. Yeah, you can go to Boston and you can go to different places in the colonies and you're told this is where ABC happened, right? I mean, I've been to a lot of these places. And it's a great story. It's great history. I love history. But as I've grown older and I've read more and I've really dove into the conspiracy aspect of things, and you just ask the simple questions. Well, how in the hell were... I mean, if you look at it like this, I don't know the exact population of the American colonies back in 1774. But I'd have to say it was 1 million, maybe. Only 3% of those individuals believed that it was their destiny to do this. That's a very small number to go against the greatest military of that time. So like I say before, it's a great story, and it gets you celebrating every year. And then I saw something online where, and I was alive during the 200th anniversary, but I was like 2, not quite 3. So obviously I don't remember the celebrations or lack thereof, but someone had pointed out that they were old enough to remember the bicentennial, but they don't remember it being such a big deal like this one is. And that's what kind of brought me to think about this show. So why is it? Why is this America 250, as they're calling it, why is it such a big deal? Because I've done shows that I did a show, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. I did a series of shows. I think it was 3 or 4 shows. And I called The Rise and Fall of Empires Through Our History. And I talked about specific empires that we're told about. Roman Empire, Ottoman Empire, the English Empire. Most of these empires literally lasted between 200 and 300 years. Well, we're at that halfway point between 200 and 300 years. Are they trying to tell us something? Are they trying to tell us that celebrate now because this might be the last one? Not that America is going away, not that the America that we know is going away. And we've done shows in the last couple of months where we've talked about these data centers, the CBDCs, the centralizing the government, and all of these things, and I feel like this is bringing it to a head. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm just digging myself too deep into a rabbit hole that I can't get out. But you do have to wonder. We have a 4th of July every year, and it's never said, well, Don, it's 250. Last year was 249. Whatever. We set off fireworks and whatever. It's great. Hey. But I can't help but wonder, why is this one such a big deal? Just because it's 250 or because it's 250? You understand where I'm going with this? You have to understand that we only know the history that we're told. Okay? These individuals always want us to forget certain, and as you grow up, you might have kids that are in school, or maybe when your kids were in school, and the history's different than when you remember it when you were in school, because it changes. Why does it change? If it's history, if it's written, it is what it is. And that's where I go to this, because we don't know the history other than what we're being told is the history. Now, obviously, it's nothing that I can verify. I can't prove that none of this ever happened. I can't prove that the Boston Tea Party, that the Revolutionary War, I can't prove none of that didn't happen. Not until I get my time machine put together and jump back 250 years to see if that really happened. Maybe it did. Maybe it was all just a put on. Maybe the stories that we're told actually happened under the facade of this. Because if this was a story in the making a couple of hundred years prior to 1776, now that's one hell of a long game. You might be listening to this and be like, this dude's lost his fucking mind. There's no way. But you got to understand, prior to America, all the countries in Europe and in Asia and the Middle East and whatever were ruled by monarchs. They were all kingdoms of some sort. Like we hear the words, the Roman Empire, the English Empire, the Ottoman. They're that because they were ruled by kings, and they weren't ruled by presidents, elected representatives of our choosing. Which brings me back to a conversation that Chris has a staunch thought process that We don't elect anybody. Yes, we go and vote, and we say, I want this person to be president, and this person to be a congressman, senator, mayor, governor, blah, 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 whatever. But none of these things take place. It's always who you think it's going to be that wins that election. I mean, even if you just look at California just last week. Do these elections actually mean anything? If you didn't go vote, would it make a difference? I used to tell you on this show that it does. That even if you're not worried about who the president is, because in the grand scheme of things, they have very little effect necessarily on what happens in your area. You should focus on governor, state representatives, mayors, city reps. But I look online and I see these data centers just wanting to pop up. Where I live in Florida, they're trying to put one right here in the city, in the town I live in. And the people that I see online are losing their shit over this. But there's a very good chance that that's going to happen anyway. And we've talked about this in previous shows. What's the point of having elected officials represent you, whether it's at your city, county, state, or federal level, that don't listen to a fucking thing you say? And that's not what we were told that this whole thing was about. We were told that what the founding fathers wrote when they declared their independence, and then when they wrote the Constitution, that it was for the people, by the people, of the people, right? But really, do you feel like you're represented properly at any level of government? Donald Trump won pretty handedly over Kamala. Ran on certain things that he hasn't backed up. Everything he ran on, he's not doing. He's gone the opposite way. I don't know why. That's a show for another day. But when you vote for somebody, whoever that is, Republican, Democrat, I don't give a shit. You're voting for that. Now, let me stop there. A percentage of this country votes for people because they like what that person has to say and what they tell them they're going to do if they get into office of whatever they're running for. Then, of course, you have another percentage of the people that just vote based on party. This guy or this gal is a Republican, I'm voting for him. This guy or this gal is a Democrat, I'm voting. Vote blue no matter who. That type of mentality. Not listening to what that person's saying. It's just because that person's a Democrat or that person's a Republican, I'm voting for that person. And it gets to the point where a lot of us are getting election fatigue, I guess is a good way to put it. And what I mean by that is, well, I'm going to listen to what this person has to say, and I'm going to vote for that person because I like what they have to say. Then they get in the office and they do a fucking thing they talked about. And then with me, as of recent history, I start looking at who's backing these candidates. Not what news network or what other politicians, but who is financially backing these individuals. And I start to wonder, and we can go back to AIPAC and we can dive into all these other situations. I'm not saying the Jews had anything to do with whatever's going on, but, the banking aspect of it, maybe they did. I don't want to end this show on a solemn note of we're just here and it's fucking, I'll say to Chris every now and again, I wish, the old scene from the Matrix, I wish I had taken the blue pill. There's a small part of me that wishes I was 6-7 years ago when I didn't really pay attention to any of this stuff, and I didn't listen to podcasts, and I didn't do research, and I just lived my life. But it does make for an interesting life when you do read these things. And that's why I encourage you guys that I can do these shows, and I can tell you the thoughts that I have in my head, and I appreciate the hell for you. I appreciate the hell. How do I want to phrase that? I appreciate the hell out of you guys for listening to this show and doing the things you do and following me on social media and whatever. But I encourage you guys to dig into these things yourself. I'm not trying to dismiss the power of America, but the experiment of America that has been taking place over the past 350 years. Now, I keep saying that because you might be thinking, Don, it's 250. Why do you keep saying 350? Okay, but yeah, we were here, 100 years or so prior to that, guys. It was an experiment. They had to build up to a point, break the point, and make America. I've said this before on plenty of shows, that this country that we live in, United States of America, is a study of how a country can be ran without a king. And then we see these individuals, they do these no king rallies because, they consider Donald Trump a king. And I'm not going to sit there and justify that because I think it's stupid. But in the grand scheme of things, I do get the sense that sometimes we are ran by a monarchy. Not saying that Donald Trump is the king, but the system is the king. You understand where I'm going with this? Not saying it's King Trump and he's ruling from a high. I feel that the president, whoever that person is, Trump, Biden, Trump, Obama, so on and so forth, they're the figurehead of the kingdom. That doesn't make them the king. The system is the king. The banks, the deep state, the bureaucrats, the people that we don't even elect, are the ones making the decisions. These PACs, not just AIPAC, not just the Jewish coalition, but Christians and businesses, oil, these big businesses, they are the kingmakers. They are the ones running the show, and we don't ever see that. We don't see these people. They don't get elected. We elect whoever we want to elect. That person gets in there by telling you what they want to do and what they're going to do and this, that, and the other thing. But then they don't do it because the kingmakers come in and make the decisions for them. Because in the grand scheme of things, every single person listening to this right now wishes they had a little bit more money. You might make a decent living, and you might have your house and your cars, and you might have some toys, and you might feel like life's great. But you also say, man, if I could just make another X amount of dollars this year, if I could just win that lottery, if I could just do this, if I could hit a scratcher and win 50 grand, I could do this, that, and the other thing. We all do it. No matter how much money you make. If you make $10 an hour, or if you make $100 an hour, every single one of us want to make more money. That's the American dream. So you elect these politicians into office, and some of them might already be millionaires, but maybe they want to be billionaires. Or they're billionaires, and maybe they want to be Elon Musk. And I don't have a problem, you'll see people online talk about Elon Musk, and I know I'm going off the tracks here, but getting mad that he just became the first trillionaire because of whatever IPO, whatever, his SpaceX stuff. I'm not mad at it. If you're a businessman and you can make money and you can make more money, more power to you. But it's these people that are behind the scenes, these people that become politicians. I want to run for Congress because I want to do right by the American people. And then money gets thrown at them and they change. Who's controlling that money? These individuals. Money makes the world go round, right? Cash rules everything around me. Cream. Dollar bill, y'all. And that's what this is all about. It's all about money. It's all about controlling our money. Back in 1929, during the Great Depression, it is the belief of Griffin and others that they created the Federal Reserve to have the Great Depression, to wreck the economy, to wreck the middle class. So over the past, 70 years in this country, the middle class is the biggest and strongest it's been. After World War II is when the middle class really boomed. And it's been pretty good for a lot of us, because I would assume most of you guys listening to this are fit into that profile. Is the next phase of the Federal Reserve to have another Great Depression, to crash the economy, to initiate CBDCs, to initiate centralized banking, digital banking to get rid of the dollar bill, to control your money, which then will control you. If anyone that you ever talk to tells you that CBDCs and crypto is the wave of the future, they're fucking wrong. Anything that can be controlled by a system, by a computer, is no good. I can use my credit card. I can go buy something. Technically, using a credit card is a form of centralized digital currency, right? Whatever bank you bank with has your credit card. That's who you use. Whatever bank it is, whatever credit card company it is, whatever it is, they, in theory, could control what you buy and don't buy. I don't care. I got a $20,000 credit limit on this card. I'm going to go buy me a new gun. I'm going to go buy me this, that, or the other thing. In theory, if they don't feel you need that gun or that whatever, they could deny the purchase. It's their money. It's not your money. It's credit. It's not your money. If the government succeeds in this central bank digital currency thought process where cash money is obsolete, what do you think will happen then? Now you can have cash money and you can make purchases and you can do that stuff. But if you remember, we talked about this during COVID, where a lot of places stopped taking cash because of the deadly disease and you might get people sick. And blah, blah, blah. We only take credit cards or debit cards or whatever. Remember that? Was that a test of the system to see how many people would just adapt to that? Well, many of us did, because even though you might have had cash and maybe you keep cash, whatever. But if you wanted to eat, if you wanted to go to the store, if you wanted to get whatever you had to get, and that place that you were going to didn't accept cash because of the deadly disease that was going around, you had to use your debit card or your credit card or whatever means of payment you had to use. They've been priming us for CBDCs for 50 years at least, because credit cards rolled out in the 70s, became popular in the 80s, and then in the 90s we started with debit cards. Then you didn't have to write checks and you didn't have to carry cash. You could just use your debit card. You could just use a credit card, whatever the case was. It was simple, made it easy. It's always in stages, guys. This has been building. Call me crazy, but think about what I'm telling you. Okay? Think about it. All right. That is all I have for you today. I'm going to wrap this show up so I can get ready and we can go have a birthday dinner with my soon-to-be 5-year-old grandson, who looks like he's about 8, maybe 9. He's a big boy. Son told me today he's 48 inches tall. He's 5. He's not even 5. He'll be 5 tomorrow. That's a big boy. Anyway, thanks for riding this show with me, guys. Read Hall's Secret Destiny of America. You can look it up. It's online. Read Griffin's book also, The Creature from Jekyll Island. And study the symbols yourself, guys. Make sure you check out our sponsors, Outpouch, NordVPN, and MyPillow. Use promo codes DTOM, well, at Outfits /DTOM. Anyway, support the show, guys. Stay sharp. Make sure you follow the show on social media. Don't Tread on America on Facebook, Instagram, True Social, and the TikTok, and of course on the Twitter X Machine, DTOM Podcast 1776. Make sure you follow the show on Rumble, Don't Tread on America TV. Do all those things, guys. Check out the DTOM Store. Get you a t-shirt, get you a whiskey glass, get you beer koozies, stickers, whatever you got, whatever you want. I got it. I got teddy bears with fucking DTOM shirts on, guys. Come on. I don't take any money from this, guys. I give it to charity. It's not about the money. It's about getting the word out there, guys. Make sure whatever podcast app you're listening to this on, you're following the show, you subscribe, whatever that button is there, hit it. If you're on Apple or Spotify, give the show a review, guys. I'll be back on Wednesday. I'm actually going to record it tomorrow, but I'll be back on Wednesday. Until then, have a great day. See ya.